6 spine-chilling childhood trauma stories, unexplainable secrets exposed from haunted lives. Maya's house stood like a lonely sentinel at the end of the cul-de-sac. Once a cozy refuge, it shuddered under the weight of darker secrets. Shadows loomed heavy that night, as she sliced through their quiet street, weary after yet another exhausting shift as a night nurse. Hoping for a peaceful evening with her children, she felt the gnawing tension wrap around her chest. With every door she passed, the chill of 2 unsettling figures flickered in her mind, drawn in crayon on colors too vivid and haunting for comfort. Stepping inside, the living room docilely awaited her. But what she found stripped away her last strands of comfort. Drawings covered the floor, crayon scrawls showing creepy silhouettes with elongated limbs and hollow eyes that stared, relentless and accusatory. Jamie and Lily were just kids, she reminded herself. They couldn't possibly be serious. But the chill that crept down her spine knotted her stomach. "It's just exhaustion," she whispered, shaking her head as Jamie's whimpers echoed from the hallway. Alarm bells rang in her head like echoes of fear. They had already begun creeping up on her during these late-night shifts. A creak from the old floorboards made her jump and her heart raced when Jamie's voice trembled out, "Mommy, there's someone out there." "It's nothing, sweetheart. Just the wind." But deep down, a knot of dread twisted tighter. Days morphed into nights, darkness bleeding unsettling sensations into her home, as if inviting phantoms to invade their lives. Shadows played at the corners of her eyes. Each night grew colder, and Mr. Keller, the seemingly friendly neighbor, began to hover too close, latching onto their family like a moth to flame. He showed up uninvited, his smile too wide, his affection for Jamie and Lily too invasive. A hand brush, a lingering question, every interaction felt like a shroud laced with secrets. "Just serving the neighborhood, Maya," he'd laugh, but his voice was oily, sending nausea spiraling in her gut. She'd nod, too exhausted to fight. Then, whispered tales about vanished families danced in her mind wherever she moved, the diner conversation swirling like ominous smoke. On a particularly restless night, a muffled thud underneath the stairs pulled her from the edge of sleep. Try as she might, she couldn't ignore the sound, the insistent thumping that seemed to echo stagnant heartbeats. A broken pipe led her away from the sanity of her bed. There she found a hidden crawlspace. Dark, dank air hit her like a cold slap. Dusty memories lay scattered, forgotten toys, ghastly portraits of smiling families now long gone. Her hand trembled, leading her to a photo that felt alive, urging her to uncover its secrets. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Heart pounding, a swirl of whispers pricked her skin as Jamie's nighttime ramblings returned. "They come when it's dark, they want to take me to the trees." A chill crept down her spine. Those figures from his drawings, the ghastly beckoning, promises of safety mixed with uninvited horror, began taking shape in vivid nightmares. Desperation clutched her heart when she confronted Mr. Keller. "What do you know about my kids?" she spat, finding a chill in her own voice. He laughed, the sound sharp and spiced with malice, woven with woven tales of witchcraft entwined with the neighborhood's fabric. Each word sliced through her like a blade. The truth glimmered in the shadows, but the night welcomed its darkness, and the stakes rose with every heartbeat. In that sinister silence, Maya pulled her children close, terror gripping her soul. What if the real monsters lurked, smiling beneath a gentle facade? What will she do when they come calling? The next morning found Maya with bleary eyes, too little sleep weighing heavily on her. Sunlight fought through the dusty blinds, throwing scattered light across the drawings littering the living room floor. The vibrancy of the crayon colors felt surreal against the looming shadows of fear from the night before. Yet, in the soft embrace of daylight, the creeping anxiety dulled just a bit. Mommy? Lily's small voice broke through, pulling Maya from her troubled thoughts. She turned, forcing a smile at her daughter, who stood clutching a stuffed bear, its fur matted and worn. Can we go to the park today? There was a glimmer of innocence in those young eyes, a plea for normalcy amidst chaos. Sure, sweetie, she replied, though her heart wasn't fully in it. She needed to keep the children away from the gripping darkness that seemed to inch closer with each passing moment. As they walked to the nearby park, the town felt different, a suffocating stillness wrapped around her, pressing against her chest. Maya glanced down at Jamie, who was stumbling slightly, a frown creasing his face deep in thought, staring off into the undulating treetops. The way his brow knitted together made her stomach twist a little tighter. Jamie, honey, you okay? He looked up, startled as if pulled from a trance. Yeah, Mommy, he managed, but there was a distant look in his eyes, one that unsettled her to the core. They reached the park, a dusty expanse of swings and slides bathed in glowing sunlight, but it didn't feel welcoming. Maya urged them to play, but soon found herself pacing near a tangle of trees on the edge of the park. The woody scent of damp earth mixed uneasily with the light breeze, bringing with it a hint of decay. She took a deep breath, trying to clear her mind, but the chill lurked there, whispering reminders of all that had unsettled her. Mommy! Lily's voice burst through her thoughts. Maya spun around to see her daughter tugging at Jamie, pointing toward the grove. Look! They're back! Lily squealed with delight. But it wasn't joy that filled Maya, it was terror. Shapes moved between the trees, figures too eerie to comprehend. Slender limbs twisted and reached out, awaiting their chance. Jamie stood frozen, eyes wide, staring at something his sister couldn't see, something that gripped his small shoulders as if inviting him closer. Time to go, kids. Maya said, voice firmer than she felt. Panic surged through her like icy water as she hurried them toward safety. As they turned, Lily giggled, Mommy, look at them. No. Don't look. But it was too late. Jamie's innocent question sliced through the air, who are they? Maya's breath hitched, horror constricting her throat. The figure's hollow eyes pierced her as they began to emerge from the trees. Faces twisted with malevolence stared back. Shadows danced around them, swirling in a hypnotic threat. Mommy, they look like my drawings. Jamie shrieked, and Maya's heart dropped. The connection between her son's artwork and these manifestations was all too real. A shriek of fear tore from her lips as she grasped both children's hands, yanking them away. But the ground beneath their feet trembled. She felt it in her bones, a low rumble that seemed to echo the darkness around them. The world shifted, the park warped into a surreal nightmare. Don't look back. She shouted, though she could scarcely contain her own terror. As they tore away from the sinister figures, Maya's mind raced. Why were they out here? What did it mean? The trees closed in, suffocating her resolve as the grip of dread latched tighter. At the edge of the park, a shadow flickered and emerged into the blinding sunlight. It was Mr. Keller, a twisted smile curling his lips. Oh, children, you shouldn't play near the trees. A rush of ice swept through her veins, and the chill of realization struck, they were not mere shadows. They were watchers. Witnesses. Maya's instincts screamed for her to flee as the weight of truth descended, but the suffocating energy held her still. Run! She shouted, and they bolted, but in that flash, she wondered. What if the shadows were merely the beginning? What if Mr. Keller was more than a benign neighbor? As they raced toward safety, a chilling thought crossed her mind. What if the darkness had already claimed them? What if he had already drawn them into a sinister game they didn't yet understand? And the real question loomed in the distance: how far would they go to keep hidden the darkest secrets of the neighborhood's past? Maya barely felt her feet touch the ground as they sprinted away from the park. Shadows pressed against her from all sides, the weight of their eyes heavy on her back. The laughter of children at play echoed in her ears, distorted into an eerie mirth that masked the horror lurking beneath. Jamie's hand felt small in hers, trembling like a leaf caught in a fierce wind, while Lily clutched her stuffed bear as if it could shield her from the chilling reality that followed them. "Mommy, where are we going?" Lily's voice trembled. In her innocence, she still sought her mother's assurance, but the reality weighing on Maya's chest rendered her mute. Just home, sweetheart. We need to get home." They rounded the corner, pushing down the familiar street that now felt foreign and ominous. Each house loomed larger, shadows creeping over them, as if the buildings were alive, watching with bated breath. Mr. Keller's hollow grin floated in her mind, an unshakable demon that whispered unsolved mysteries, his intentions twisted and dark, but they didn't get far. A rustling sound came from the bushes lining the street, and Maya's heart lurched. She slowed her pace, dragging the children to a near stop. Her eyes darted to the hedge, breath held. There it was again, a whisper of movement that sent a chill curling down her spine. "Mommy, what was that?" Jamie whispered, his small body shaking like a fragile twig. "Keep moving, don't look back," Maya hissed under her breath, urgency consuming her thoughts. She pulled her children forward, urgency lifting her feet. They were almost home. The haven that should have been a sanctuary now felt like a flimsy barricade against the mounting horrors. As they neared their house, a cold wind swept past, chilling Maya to the bone, almost as if a warning. She fumbled with her keys, her hands trembling as she struggled to find the right one. A screech of rusted hinges cut through the oppressive silence as they burst into the safety of their home. Slamming the door shut, she pressed her back against it, heart pounding erratically. The cramped living room, filled with familiar comfort, suddenly felt stifling. "Mommy! What about the monsters?" Lily whimpered, her wide eyes swimming with tears. "There's no such thing as monsters, honey," Maya soothed, though she felt the weight of her own lie pressing down. The drawings that sprawled across the living room floor glared back at her, colors vivid and intrusive. Would those tiny, innocent creations bear witness to the darkness they had just fled? She ushered them away from the drawings, leading them to the kitchen. "Let us make some cookies, okay? Can I help?" Jamie asked, his voice gaining a bit of strength. "Of course, sweetie." She reached out to ruffle his hair, but hesitated. What if the act of creation drew out something worse? A memory flickered. The way Jamie's drawings had come alive not in wonder, but in a dreadful encounter. With shaky hands, she set out the ingredients. But the vibrant colors of the crayon drawing seemed to pulse in the dim light, glowing with the energy of something sinister, something hungry. Suddenly, laughter echoed from the living room, a childlike giggle that belonged to no one there. Maya froze, ears straining to hear, heart racing. The sound of laughter twisted into something cruel, as if mocking them, promising that the shadows were still very much in play. "Mommy, what's that?" Lily asked, her face paling. "It's nothing, just the wind," Maya stammered, but she felt the lie escape her lips like a venomous whisper. The giggle echoed again, sharper this time. Maya felt her breath hitch as dread pooled in her gut. She couldn't ignore what the night had unleashed. Clenching her fist, she turned to face the children. "Stay here. I'll just check," she said, guilt racing through her. With every step back toward the living room, a primal fear ignited in her soul. What had they really brought upon themselves? At the threshold, she hesitated, hand hovering over the frame. And then she heard it, a whisper, soft and urgent. "Maya, come play with us." Chills ran down her spine as her heart thundered in her ears. The shadows waited, hunger lingering in the air around her, and she had no idea what awaited on the other side of that doorway. But she had to find out, didn't she? The air thickened as Maya stood frozen at the threshold, her breath hitching in her throat. The whisper crept through the crack of the door, curling around her like a thin tendril of smoke. "What am I doing?" A part of her screamed for her to run back to the safety of the kitchen, to shield her children from whatever lingered in the shadows, but another part, drenched in morbid curiosity, pushed her closer to the ominous doorway. "Maya, come play with us." The voice beckoned again, chilling and innocent yet drenched in malice. It resonated through her bones, stirring dark memories of laughter twisted into something malevolent. Maya. Jamie's voice broke her trance, pulling her back into the moment. She turned to see him standing in the kitchen doorway, fingers gripping the frame with white-knuckled terror. "Mommy, please don't go." Lily echoed, eyes shimmering with unshed tears. A rush of guilt washed over her. "I'm just checking on something," she whispered, forcing a brave smile. But the tremor in her voice betrayed her. With a deep breath, she turned back to the living room. The shadows flickered, bold and alive, as if sensing her resolve. Stepping inside, she felt the atmospheric change, an inexplicable weight pressing down, palpable and suffocating. The room loosened its grip of warmth as her eyes adjusted to the muted light. The familiar decor she had decorated with love now felt tainted, the framed pictures on the walls staring back with hollow eyes. Then she saw them, the drawings. They were no longer just children's crayon scrawls, they seemed animated, their colors swirling unnaturally, almost as though the paper pulsed with a dark heartbeat. Her breath quickened, a rush of fear roiling inside her. "What is happening?" she murmured to herself, inching closer to one particular drawing. A dark figure loomed in the corner, its shape vaguely humanoid, with empty eyes that seemed to follow her every movement. Just then, another giggle shattered the silence, bursting forth from the air itself, guttural and high-pitched. Maya's heart raced as the air thickened with an unspoken promise, as if the room itself conspired against her. "Mommy! Come back!" Jamie's whimper sent a jolt of panic through her. "Just a minute!" she shouted back, forcing her voice to remain steady despite the urgency clawing at her insides. But then the words dripped into her mind again, like honey tainted with poison. "Maya, we want to play." The shadows twisted and curled, intensifying around her. She tore her eyes from the drawing and turned sharply to the window. Outside, the streetlights flickered as if they too sensed the encroaching darkness. Out of the corner of her eye, she saw movement. A silhouette darted past the window, a fleeting glimpse of something that shouldn't be there. No, not in her street, not in broad daylight, only now, in this twisted reality, where all sense had abandoned reason. Maya. The children were crying now, tears spilling freely, fear palpable. She rushed towards the kitchen, the pull of the living room almost a tangible force trying to drag her back, yet when she reached the door frame, the whisper transformed, a cacophony of voices wrapping around her in euphoric delight. "Join us! Join us!" The walls shimmered, and Maya stumbled back. "No! Get away!" She grabbed her children, pulling them close, but the whispers echoed, drumming in her ears, overwhelming her senses. "Mommy!" Jamie's voice broke through, laced with terror, as her grip tightened around them. She needed to act. But then, a sudden silence fell. The air shifted, thick and stale. Maya's heart raced. She felt as though the entire house held its breath with her, waiting for something more. Something worse. Then, a thud resonated from the living room. It was deep, purposeful, unmistakably human-like footsteps. "Mommy, what is happening?" Lily sobbed, burying her face in Maya's side. Maya didn't know. She couldn't answer. Maya let us play. The voice returned, now echoing off the walls, a sinister invitation that turned her blood to ice. With adrenaline surging within her, she turned toward the living room, ready to confront the invitation that had morphed into an undeniable threat. What awaited her behind the threshold could mean everything: life, death, or admission to a horror she might never escape. "Maya, come join us," the dark chorus sang, relentless and waiting for her answer. Would she dare respond? Maya's heart raced as she stepped into the living room, dragging her children with her. The shadows seemed to pulse, to breathe, asserting their presence, and a part of her recoiled in pure terror. Each step felt heavy, like wading through thick mud, the air colder, bringing goosebumps to her skin. "Shoo, stay close," she whispered, but the soothing words stuck in her throat. No amount of assurance could mask the dread enveloping them. The darkness hummed with malicious intent, almost giddy with anticipation. The room, once her sanctuary, now felt warped, a sinister space brimming with unseen eyes watching her, taunting her, laughing. Maya, the voices called again, their tone becoming hungry, demanding. There was no innocence left, the sweetness had curdled into grotesque hunger. We're waiting. A flicker of movement caught her eye. A figure, shadow-like, glided across the far wall, an enigma in the murky corners. Her breath quickened as she tightened her grip on Jamie and Lily. We need to go now, she managed to say, turning toward the hall that led to the front door. But the front door was no longer visible. Panic surged as the walls closed in, disorienting her. Each direction seemed to twist back on itself, a malignant design crafted to ensnare. It was no longer a simple house but a labyrinth infused with a malevolence feeding off her fears. Then came the thud again, louder now, reverberating in her chest as she struggled to comprehend where the sound was coming from. It was a rhythmic beat, heavy and deliberate, almost mocking her efforts. Maya, come play. The chorus called again, united and strong, like a tide of darkness pouring over her. Not today, she said, the words barely escaping her lips, her own voice a whisper of defiance against the overwhelming pull. But deep down, she began to question her resolve. What if there was no escape? Maya. Please don't leave us. Jamie's voice broke, a raw edge of desperation cutting through her. The urgency of that plea brought her back, focusing her mind. No. She couldn't let the darkness win, not while her children were with her. As if sensing her determination, the room began to shift, the shadows elongating and twisting into grotesque forms, faces forming out of the darkness, twisted grins stretching across their features. Join us, they sang sweetly, an orchestrated temptation sending chills racing down her spine. Hold on tight. Maya shouted, then yanked her children forward, trying to force her way through the living room. But the air thickened, a wall conspiring to push her back. The footsteps came again, now sounding closer, unsettling and calculated. Maya this time, the voice was different, gruffer, deeper. Not childish but foreboding, as if laced with pain. The ground beneath her shifted, and in a heartbeat, she saw it, a dark, hulking figure emerging, its features obscured by swirling blackness. Instinct screamed at her to flee, but she couldn't leave Lily and Jamie behind. The whispering intensified, wrapping around her like a snare. Join us forever. Everything shifted, colors fading, the reality around her breaking apart. A single thought screamed through the chaos, muting her awareness. This isn't just a game, this isn't just play. Maya. A voice broke through the echoing calls, a voice she recognized, lugging a weight of familiarity and dread. Maya, what have you done? It whispered, fraught with betrayal and sorrow. Frozen, she struggled to make sense of the unfolding nightmare, the truth looming like an executioner's blade. Then she felt the coldness and icy hand grip her shoulder from behind. What now? What horror awaited her as she turned to face her own darkness? As the weight of fear enveloped her, she braced for the revelation, knowing this was just the beginning. The shadows pressed in like an angry tide, each inch of space grinding against Maya's senses. She felt trapped in a cage of darkness, the grip of the unseen figure tightening around her shoulder like a vice. Fear surged through her, suffocating, and with it came the urge to scream. But she couldn't. Not without losing her children in this nightmare. Maya, the voice taunted again, now a snarling echo woven with familiar tones. A veil of memories swept over her, thoughts of laughter and warmth turning into something sinister under the weight of the darkness. It felt like a cruel joke being played at her expense. She turned, heart pounding, forcing herself to face whatever lurked behind. Who are you? She demanded, her voice steadier than she felt. The hulking figure emerged from the gloom, revealing more than mere shadows. It staggered slightly, its form shifting like smoke. And then its face flickered in and out of sight. Moments of clarity revealed not just fearsome features, but eyes that rolled back in pain and longing. Maya, don't you recognize me? The thing rasped, its voice a hollow mockery, sending ice through her veins. The air thickened, pulling her closer to the figure. She shook her head, desperate to deny the truth creeping at the edges of her mind. The shadows writhed, alive with interpretation, draping everything in suffocating dread. "Stay back!" she shouted, yanking Jamie and Lily closer, their small hands trembling in her grip, but the spectre stepped forward, its form cracking under the strain, as if reality itself couldn't contain it. "You made a choice," it repeated, each word punctuated by a thudding heartbeat that palpitated in the air, matching her own growing dread. "We need you, leave us alone," Jamie wailed, his voice cracking like glass. The horror had seeped into his youthful innocence, turning it into a plea laced with despair. The figure halted, momentarily stilled by the sound of Jamie's anguished cry. Then it lunged, twisting through shadows with a speed that stole Maya's breath. Everything froze as she struggled to pull her children back. The air vibrated with a chilling resonance, a storm brewing in the corners of the room. Suddenly, the walls shimmered, and images flickered, showing brief glimpses of the past. Flashes of laughter, sunlight cascading through the windows, family dinners, and slivers of warmth transformed into the grotesque figures of the shadows. They laughed now, horrific, hollow laughter. "After all this time you left us," they sang, their voices stretching and bending as if mocking her. "No. No." Maya pleaded, desperation clawing at her throat, words rushing like torrents. She had to break this cycle, to dispel the grotesque puppets of her past. With a surge of determination, she pushed forward, the shadows pushing back harder than she expected. The ground shifted beneath her feet, and for a moment, her vision blurred. But that pain, the searing coldness at her back, grounded her. She grasped it tightly, bloodying her palm as she dug her fingernails into her children, a fierce protector against whatever hell awaited them, and then the spectral figure morphed, agony dissolving into hope. Its features shifted, revealing a woman, familiar and comforting, with a pleading expression eclipsed by despair. "You have to remember," it cried, the shackles of anguish tightening around them all. Maya's breath caught as recognition pierced through the darkness. Her mother, lost to her ages ago. The realization cut deeper than any fear, pulling the trace of comfort she once knew to the forefront of her mind. "Mom," Maya whispered, trembling under the weight of revelation. The shadows shuddered, and in the quiet that followed, their true desperation echoed in the silence, forming an invisible barrier that threatened to snap. "Maya," the shadowed rendition of her mother said again, the tones mixing with the whispers lingering in the air, wailing like a chorus of lost souls. But was it really her? And if so, at what cost? The question twisted around the room like the shadows warping into grotesque shapes. Was this the truth she had sought to uncover, or was it simply another trick of the darkness? Just then, the ground beneath them began to crumble, opening a dark chasm that glittered with flickering lights, an invitation, or a warning. Maya tightened her hold on Jamie and Lily, glancing between the potential escape and the phantom of her past. A decision loomed, heavy as the darkness slipping around her. The air throbbed, pulsing with dread. "Mom!" she shouted, but the voice faded, swallowed by the approaching void. What awaited them in the abyss? As the shadows billowed, and the chasm sighed, Maya stood at the threshold of choices, her heart racing. How far would she go to reclaim her past? How deep would the darkness pull her before it let go? Maya's mind raced as she stared at the yawning abyss, her heart hammering against her ribs like a caged animal. The flickering lights shimmered with deceptive allure, promising secrets better left buried. She felt the weight of her children, fragile whispers of innocence clinging to her in the face of inevitable horror. "We can't go in there," she breathed, her voice breaking. Yet, the shadows around them pulsed, eager for her decision. "Mom, what do we do?" Jamie's voice cracked, barely above a whisper. Maya could see the fear etched on his small face, his eyes wide and glistening with tears that threatened to spill over. Lily, clutching his hand, gazed up at her with a trust that only a child could possess. The space around them thrummed with an urgency that prickled against her skin. I have to remember," she finally admitted, the words spilling out like an incantation, igniting a flicker of fear and resolve within her. "Maya." The voice of her mother morphed into a wailing lament, pulling at her heartstrings. "My sweet girl, you have to come to us." "No." Maya screamed, her foot jolting back as the shadows leapt forward, a creeping sensation of despair latching onto her ankles, anchoring her in place. She felt as if she were drowning in a sea of sorrow and regret, memories flooding her mind, fragments of laughter intertwined with grief. Maya, the figure pulsed with dim light, its face shifting, twisting into other lost souls. Each transition brought forth painful flashes of the past, her mother's embrace, her father's laughter, fleeting moments twisted into horrific memories by the darkness now surrounding her. Each recollection was a thread unraveling in her mind, unraveling the very fabric of her sanity. "The past is our prison." The specter of her mother cried out, limbs straining against the inky barrier that enveloped them. "Only you can set us free." Maya gritted her teeth, battling to keep her fear from consuming her. "No. You aren't real," she shouted, hands shaking. The shadows writhed closer, each whisper a venomous coil tightening around their throats. "Stay back." Suddenly, the earth beneath her trembled violently, the chasm expanding, pulling at her. Those flickering lights twisted into grotesque smiles, inviting her to take that fatal step forward. She felt as if her very essence was being siphoned into the abyss, pulling her along like a moth drawn to a flame. "Mom!" Jamie cried out, his small fingers digging into her arm, panic radiating from him in waves. "We can't just leave." Maya looked at her son and daughter, their faces twisted in terror, reminding her of the innocence she fought desperately to protect. "We can fight this. We can be free," she shouted, rallying to find strength. Clenching her jaw, she stepped closer to the edge, determined to face whatever awaited her. In that moment, a piercing scream erupted from the shadows, shattering the air with sound as if the very darkness itself was protesting her steadfastness. The ground buckled, splitting wide to reveal a spiraling descent filled with darkness swallowing the glimmer of light whole. "Maya!" Her mother's voice echoed now with rising desperation, morphing into a chorus of grief-stricken cries. Holding Jamie and Lily close, a wave of determination surged through Maya. "I will not let you take them." With that, she embraced the fear, her breath catching like glass in her throat as she prepared to leap into the abyss. But a sudden force slammed into her, and time slowed. The specters surged, twisting and merging into a shape that flickered with the pain of their righteousness, a reflection of Maya's own torment. The impulse to save her children wrestled with the instinct to save herself, collapsing like a house of cards around them. "We are the past," they chanted, their voices entwining like roots. What if she couldn't protect them? What if the shadows were right? As Maya stood on the brink of darkness, fear clawing at her insides, the world around them exploded into chaos. In that instant, a blinding light burst forth from the chasm, inviting, and yet terrifying, cutting through the shadows like a knife. Maya hesitated, heart racing. It was a chance and a risk. Could they really escape? In a heartbeat, she made her choice, and the darkness erupted in rage. Every shadow screamed as she hurtled forward, and in that moment, she felt the chains of the past clamping down heavier than ever. But what awaited beyond that light? Would it genuinely be freedom? Or would it lead deeper into the unforgiving void? As they plunged into the unknown, the abyss whispered promises and threats alike, shrouding them in a shroud of haunting possibilities. The light engulfed them, a sharp contrast to the claustrophobic darkness they had just known. It expanded, stretching like a rubber band pulled to its limit, until Maya felt its warmth against her skin. It was an odd sensation, almost comforting, but the thrill of her heart reminded her this was all still a gamble. They tumbled through, limbs flailing, swallowed by the brilliance. Moments stretched into eternity as anxiety neared a fever pitch. Just when Maya thought they might burst apart from the force, she felt the abrupt impact of something solid beneath her. They landed in a tangled heap, dust swirling up into the brilliant light that surrounded them. Breathing hard, Maya rolled onto her back, her heart racing as she adjusted to the stark brightness. Jamie and Lily clambered off her, confusion written across their faces. Where are we?" Jamie whispered, eyes darting, the child's innocence stripped bare before this new, unsettling reality. Maya blinked, her surroundings beginning to take shape. They stood in what appeared to be a lifestyle eerily familiar yet distorted. The bright hues of a suburban neighborhood houses lined up like sentinels stood before them, their paint faded, windows clouded with grime. "It looks like home," Lily said softly, her voice a delicate chime against the silence. Maya frowned. There was something wrong with this place. It felt too familiar, yet there was a disquiet swirling around every corner. The air was thick, heavy with secrets, suffocating her with unasked questions. She pulled the children closer, a protective instinct surging through her. "Stay close," she commanded, scanning the street. An uncanny stillness filled the air. Not a single leaf stirred, the ether felt static, packed with unresolved memories and buried fears. As they walked, Maya heard a strange sound. A whisper. Low, persistent, almost melodic but filled with an imploring tone that sent shivers squeezing down her spine. "Mom?" Jamie asked, moving closer to her. "What is that?" "Something we need to find," she replied, unsure of her own words. She didn't want to admit she felt it too, the pull in her gut. It felt like a summons, urgent, demanding. The whisper grew louder, wrapping around them, filling their minds with bursts of haunting laughter mixed with pain. Maya couldn't decipher the words, yet they tugged at her heart like incessant fingers. Then she spotted a dilapidated playground at the end of the street, where swings creaked without wind. "I'll check it out," Maya said, knowing the need to confront whatever awaited them. The children hesitated but nodded. The shadows that had chased them whispered in her ears, but she didn't look back. When her foot hit the cool ground beneath her, she felt a sharp pain that shot through her, like a splinter embedding deep within her soul. Memories flooded her, echoes of laughter, cries, and screams from her childhood. Each step brought anew the weight of choices she had buried long ago. The playground loomed ahead, grim and forlorn, a mausoleum of once joyful times. Once there, she froze, horror gripping her heart as she laid eyes on the swing set. The chains rusted, deserted. She could almost hear the faint echo of children playing, friendly urgency woven within each strand of their distant laughter. "Maya!" It rang out again, a voice woven into the very fabric of her past. "Maya!" This time, her name carried the urgency of a dying gasp. A familiar voice infused with desperation filled the air. Her mother's image flickered in front of her eyes, the sadness palpable. But it was just an echo, wasn't it? The tendrils of fear formed a vicious grip around her throat, terror clawing at the edges of her sanity. "Maya!" It wailed again. "Come to us!" Her heart swelled, and panic surged within her. Could this be a trap? Or a chance for salvation? Time warped around her, and suddenly, Jamie's voice broke through her reverie. "Mom, please! We're scared." In that moment, she realized freedom might be within her reach, but the deeper they delved into the shadows of their past, the darker their future became. What awaited them was shrouded in uncertainty. At that moment, their fate hinged on what she would choose, the call of shadows or the cries of her children. Abruptly, from the corner of her eye, she spotted movement, figures emerging from the fading light, gliding towards the playground. They weren't alone anymore. As she turned to face them, dread washed over her like a winter chill. Who were they, and what did they want? The echoes grew louder, feeding the unease tightening inside her. Where would this path lead now? Or were they fated to repeat the cycle of pain and regret? Maya braced herself. Despair and betrayal lurked in shadows she knew all too well. The stage was set, but each choice echoed with dire consequences. She took a step forward, knowing the confrontation was just beginning. What awaited her there, the light or the promise of salvation? Would they finally unearth the truth or plunge once more into darkness? Maya stood frozen, the figures moving closer, shrouded in a haze of faded light. Each slim silhouette contorted around her gaze, twisting not only the air but also the memories of her childhood, treasured moments that now felt like shards of glass, painfully familiar yet strikingly unfamiliar. "Mom!" Jamie's voice quivered, the tremor echoing her own heartbeat. Maya turned back to him, saw the pleading glisten in his wide eyes. She reached out, and Lily gripped her other hand tightly. The pull of her mother's voice grew louder, relentless, as if it were coaxing her into the depths of an endless, dark pool. The figures emerged fully from the shadows. Their faces were indistinct, mere smudges of the past that flickered like dying flames. Yet, there was something unsettlingly familiar about them, like a distant cousin from a forgotten family reunion. Maya, one figure whispered, the voice both sweet and sorrowful, inviting her to remember. Join us. Terror clawed up her spine. Who are you? She demanded, her voice shaking even as she tried to maintain control. What do you want? I'm not here to play games. She wants the truth, a second voice rasped, dripping with heavy intent. We all do, don't you remember? The playground transformed around them, the air thickening with sorrow. Maya's senses ignited. Every creak of the swing set, every wisp of wind, took on a heavy weight of longing. The memories surged, bleeding into her consciousness like ink spilled on paper. Maya, the first figure, called again, this time reaching out, fingers stretched as if trying to bridge the chasm between memories and reality. You promised. What did I promise? She cried, battling the rising tide of dread. With each passing heartbeat, she felt the darkness coiling tighter, whispering truths she feared would tear her apart. Everything you buried, it's time to come home. The figure's voice cracked, revealing centuries of suffering woven within. Maya, please. Lily interjected, her small voice cutting through the haze, full of innocent fear. Let us go, let us leave. But Maya stood her ground, her gaze flicking between the children and the unfurling past. She felt her breath quicken, the panic rising like a boiling sea. A primal urge to protect her children warred with an insatiable need to uncover the haunting truth locked away in her mind. Children shouldn't be here. Another figure hissed, narrowing its foggy eyes. The words coiled around Maya, binding her in place, accusing her of having brought them to this cursed ground. You think you can shield them? We're all connected. Shadows danced at the periphery of her vision, and Maya could feel them thrumming with energy, pulling her toward the playground's centerpiece, a massive, rust-eaten slide. Memories collided in a chaotic whirl, teasing recollections of laughter and joy that turned sour as dread crept in. She had loved this place once, hadn't she? Maya, her mother's voice whispered again, softer now, wrapping around her like a comforting embrace. You left us. But you must choose, face the truth or let them go. The children tugged at her arms, panic lancing in their wide eyes. Mom! Jamie pleaded, his voice breaking. He didn't understand the danger they faced here, exposed between the realms of childhood and the dark underbelly of memory, and then, it hit her, a crashing wave of realization that nearly brought her to her knees. The figures were remnants, fragments of her forgotten past, beckoning her into the depths of an ocean of buried horrors. But what lay beneath the surface? Was it something to confront, or something meant to keep hidden? Every ounce of her being screamed to flee, to shield her kids and escape the playground. It felt like a trap, but stepping away made it feel like abandonment. As she clenched her fists, resolve surged. No! Maya shouted, the sound shattering the growing darkness around her. I want to let you take them. You don't control me. I am the mother. The figures recoiled, swirling in a storm of anguish and rage. The haunting echoes of her childhood screams vibrated in the air, creating a cacophony of chaos. Then you must choose. They bellowed as the sky darkened, drawing heavy clouds overhead. Choose who you will save. With that, the world around her began to crack, fissures forming beneath her feet. Maya felt her pulse racing, and she turned desperately to her children. Hold on tight. She cried, embracing them. We have to get out of here. But the ground split wide open, shadows reaching out, clawing towards them. Would they fall into the depths of despair or find a way back to the light? As the abyss yawned open, revealing a darkness filled with despair, one question lingered: would her choices ensure their survival, or lead them deeper into a nightmare beyond escape? Maya gripped her children tightly, their small bodies trembling against her. Fear pulsed through the air, thickening around them like a heavy fog. "We've made it this far," she whispered, just for herself. "We won give in now." The ground continued to tremble beneath their feet, fissures spreading like spiderwebs, threatening to split apart the very fabric that separated them from falling into the shadowy abyss. The figures called out, voices winding into a chaotic chorus begging her to listen, begging her to succumb. But she wasn't going to lose her children to this nightmare. "Look at me, Jamie. Look at me, Lily," she urged, kneeling to meet their frightened eyes. "I need you both to be brave right now. Can you do that for me?" "Yes, Mommy," they replied, fierce loyalty bolstering their small voices. "Together," she said, her voice steadying as determination surged through her. "We'll face this together." The darkness throbbed as if alive, pushing back against her resolve. Shadows darted closer, twisting and writhing in angry tendrils, whispering doubts, promising lies, but Maya steeled her heart. Instead of caving, she stepped toward the slide at the playground, the heart of the darkness pulsating with echoes of her past. Several memories flickered in her mind, vivid as her heartbeat. Joyful laughter turned sorrowful cries. It was time to reclaim what was hers. "Maya, join us." The figures beckoned again, their distorted forms closing in, their hunger palpable. With a deep breath, she thrust her chin up. "You don't own me. You don't control my family." Her voice rang clear, echoing off the desolate playground. The shadows hesitated, a flicker of uncertainty crossing their faceless forms, and in that pause, Maya seized her opportunity. "Together, we can break this. You're not my past, you're only shadows." An immense tremor erupted as if her words struck a nerve deep within the darkness. The figures recoiled, shrouded in anger and pain, their whispers turning to growls. The crack beneath her feet widened, darkness pouring up like venom from a wound. "Hold on." Ma yanked her children close, and together they leaped away from the void, aiming for the light. The air outside felt electric as if the very universe was bending to her will. Each heartbeat pushed them forward, and as they soared into the air, they felt something shift. They landed in a sprawl on the grass of the neighborhood outside the haunted playground. Breathless, Maya scrambled to her feet, eyes wide. Jamie and Lily still clutched her sides, their hands tight. "Did we make it? Are we safe?" Jamie's voice quivered, a thread of hope woven with fear. Maya looked around, the grotesque playground now a distant memory, shadows receding from view as they overwhelmed the remnants of the spectral world that had imprisoned them. "Yes, I think we are," she breathed, her chest tightening with a mix of disbelief and relief. But something nagged at her. Was it truly over? Had their escape from despair severed the ties that sought to claim her children? She turned, scanning their innocent faces to see shadows lingering behind their eyes, but they looked just as they always had. "Mama, look!" Lily pointed at the swing set, the laughter of children echoing faintly in the distance. It was a gentle reminder that while some parts of her past had been claimed by darkness, there remained a flicker of hope worth holding on to. "We should go home," Maya declared, firm in her tone. "Together, we can make new memories." The children nodded, and as they began to walk home, each step infused with the authenticity of new beginnings, she smiled softly, embracing her children as they opened the door to their welcoming haven. When they stepped inside, a sense of warmth enveloped them, older but safely theirs. Jamie and Lily flitted about, reclaiming their sanctuary, laughter dancing again in the air of their home. Maya stood still for a moment, taking it all in the comfort of the familiarity around her. The shadows that once lingered seemed mere echoes now, reminders of a battle won. She exhaled deeply, finally free from the past's grasp and ready to embrace the warmth of connection that thrived in love. Her heart swelled with relief. It didn't mean their journey was done, but it was a step, a moment that mattered. They would grow, and together they would weave light into the shadows, reclaiming their home as a fortress against whatever darkness might still lurk outside. "Let us bake those cookies, shall we?" Maya smiled, ready to fill the house with the sweet scent of tradition. Yes. Jamie shouted excitedly, and both children rushed toward the kitchen. As she watched them, laughter bubbling like a brook, Maya made her way to the window, casting one last glance toward the playground shimmering dangerously in the distance. Nothing could take them now, not if they stood together. And in that moment, she whispered a silent promise, I will always choose us. Listen up. You need to subscribe immediately so you don't miss the next exclusive stories coming your way. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and keep the excitement alive. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this thrilling conclusion. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see it. Let us keep this community growing strong.